My name is Andy, and this is the most magical podcast on earth. When I'm not on holiday at Walt Disney World, I'm planning a holiday to Disney. And when I'm not planning a holiday to Disney, I'm talking about Disney with other UK fans like me who make the trip to Orlando and the House of the Mouse. So if you too are mad for Mickey, then this is the podcast for you. Or maybe you're the Disney novice, maybe thinking about planning your first trip to Walt Disney World, and you thought that the Jungle Cruise was a remix of something by Jane McDonald. Well, then this really is the podcast for you. Every week, I'll be chatting to other Disney superfans from around the UK to share their memories of their magical times and some top tips. And this week's guest, Ruth, has got some advice if you or a member of your family or friends suffers from epilepsy.
The only time I was worried was in Winnie the Pooh's blustery day when it was all stormy, and I thought, oh, this is a bit exciting.
Also going to be answering your Walt Disney World questions, getting some news from the parks, and this week we're going to be ending the podcast with a poem. And make sure you keep in touch. Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, we are at PodMagical. This is the most magical podcast on earth as part of the Secret Recordings Network. On the week that we've actually found out the opening dates for Walt Disney World, it was announced earlier on this week that it's going to be opened in phases. First up, Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom will be reopening from the 11th of July, followed by Epcot on Hollywood Studios a few days later on July the 15th. For those wanting to go to the parks, reservations will be required. Capacity is going to be limited. They also mentioned as well that things like parades and fireworks and meet and greets are going to be suspended for the time being. So initially anything that draws a big crowd within the parks won't happen. Also, it's been noted that face masks will be required. But it was interesting, I was watching the Orange County meeting where they proposed these ideas that said, yes, we know this is the world we live in now, face masks will be required, but they are going to work on relaxation areas where you can kind of go and just, maybe take it off and have a breather for a minute or two, because, if you're going to Walt Disney World in August and you've got to wear a face mask and the humidity and the heat, it's going to be crazy. But they are the plans in force at the moment. That's the latest we've got from Walt Disney World. Although here in the UK, it might be a while before we can go. Who knows when we can go? Maybe you're just thinking of rescheduling for next year. If you are thinking of rescheduling, you're changing your plans, you're thinking about your plans, don't forget, here on the podcast every week, I'm here to answer your questions. I'm not a travel expert. I'm not a medical profession, but if it comes to, just getting a few ideas, you can get in touch. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is where we are for any of your questions, which is what Jordan has done, rescheduling our September holiday this year to September next year. We were going to stay in All-Star Sports. However, we're thinking, because we're not going to get on holiday this year, we're thinking of moving to a moderate. Is it worth it? And which one would you go for? Okay. So you're going from a value resort to a moderate. I suppose, yeah, if you're not going on holiday this year, you want to put more money towards next year, then maybe have a look at something like French Quarter. That's always nice. And you'll notice a big difference as well. If you're going from one of the bigger value resorts to something smaller like French Quarter, it is smaller. And, well, if you've listened to the podcasts, the last few podcast guests have all loved French Quarter just because of the size of it and that one bus stop that goes backwards and forwards. Maybe, depending on how your budget goes, have a look at Animal Kingdom Lodge. You can get some good deals there as well. That's the cheaper end of the more deluxe resorts. You got any questions for the podcast, or you would like to be a podcast guest? Send them over. Facebook, Twitter and Instagram is where we are. Podmagical. Ruth is this week's podcast guest, our superfan. Ruth, tell me, why do you love Walt Disney World?
I think there's lots of reasons, actually, and I think the reasons have changed as I've kind of got older, that when you're little it's just all about the characters and the fun. But I've been watching the Disney Plus Imagineering.
Oh, I'm obsessed.
Yeah, and I think it's just brought home, like, Disney they're so clever and they do everything so well. And I think, as an adult, I appreciate the way they do it and how well they do it all. Yeah,
even to now, when it got to, it was the last episode a few weeks ago when it was episode 6, and you kind of saw the stuff that they're doing right up to present time. It's just it's borderline genius.
Yeah, it's very clever and well done. And I think as well, they just cope with things well. If things don't quite go right or something happens, I think they just do things well. And
they've learned that lesson this year, I'm guessing.
Yes.
By closing the doors. So you said when things changed from when you were young. So when was the first time you went?
So I first went as a 3-year-old. Mum and Dad took myself and my brother. He was 5 at the time. And we've been almost every second year since then. And the year that I was 5, they had a villa across there for quite a long time in the summer. My mum's a teacher, so We've got long summer holidays. And they'd got an annual pass that year. So we went quite a lot.
So how many weeks were you over there for that time?
6 weeks, I think it was.
Oh, the whole summer?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, do you remember much about the first time you went?
Not time I was 3, I don't. But Mum said when we came back the first time, the only thing that my brother and I would talk about was the wee trolley cars in the car park. All that money had all that time, and all you talked about was, and we had cardboard boxes in the living room, and we reenacted the trolley car park.
Oh, what? Well, if any parents, thinking of going and want to save some money, there's your top tip. Don't get park tickets, just park the car and then drive to the entrance and drive back again. Tell me about your favourite attraction. I believe you've got a bit of a guilty pleasure.
But I'm afraid it's a bit of a controversial one, and it's Small World.
Never controversial, Ruth, never controversial. It's a classic, and as you say, you've watched the Imagineering story, so there's a lot of heart and history in that attraction.
Yeah.
So what is it about Small World, though?
I just think it's lovely. and it's something that we've done every time. So, it's just one of those kind of, you go back and you do it. And it's always got quite a small queue as well, generally. So it's not one that you're kind of having to hang around for. But I do. I think it's lovely. And I think the dolls are so well made. And yeah. One of my friends who I've gone with recently, she thinks it's horrific.
So she's made her go on it more and more times.
It's like something out of a horror film.
I can see where she's coming from in that. So the last time you went, am I right in saying that you went over Christmas?
Yeah, so we went this last Christmas and New Year, which was the first time. We'd only ever been Easter or the summer before. And
how did it compare? Kind of like, because people say, the big summer crowds, but then the even bigger Christmas crowds. How was it in relation?
So we only went 2 days and we avoided the big holiday days. So we avoided Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And the day we went to Magic Kingdom, it was really overcast and drizzly. And the park was deserted. We were kind of walking on to rides. And I have epilepsy, so I get the disability access.
Oh, the DAS card, yeah.
Yeah, we kind of zipped through about 6 or 7 different attractions by 10 o'clock, do you know?
I love those mornings when you go, wow, we've done this already and it's only 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
You mentioned you've got epilepsy. Is there any attractions that you have to avoid?
Yeah, there's a couple of the bigger ones, like the Rock and Roller Coaster. There's not very many, whereas if you, for example, Universal, there's a lot of the Universal rides that you can't do. The only time I was worried was in Winnie the Pooh's blustery day when it goes all stormy. And I thought, this is a bit exciting.
Oh, when it goes a bit crazy. Is that the weird dream sequence?
Yeah. And I was like, it's going to be really embarrassing if I have a seizure on Winnie the Pooh.
Did Disney give you guidance then, avoid this at all costs?
On the My Disney World app, you can click on that and it also it gives you information about which would be a risk. And it's really easy to find out what the recommendations are. So, yeah. Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff you need to do, obviously, before you start booking fast passes and things. There's no point booking a fast pass for Rock and Roller Coaster and losing that.
Yes.
Let's talk about places to stay. You mentioned last time you only went to the parks for a few days. Did you tend to stay off-site?
Yeah, we have mostly stayed in villas. We would quite often go with either another family or a group of us go. So it works out a lot more reasonable to stay in a villa. We have once stayed in a hotel and we once stayed in the service departments, but most of the time it's been in a villa. So, and I think that's just a bit more of a chilled out holiday as well if you're in the villa.
You can have pool days, yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of getting around, if there's quite a few of you, would you hire a minibus?
We've tended to hire a couple cars. And then you can all do your own thing on different days. So
we'll get some more of your Walt Disney World tips and advice, and we'll talk food in a moment, Ruth. And talking about food, that's one of our recommendations for Disney Plus this week. We're getting your Disney Plus recommendations. If you've really delved deep now, we've had Disney Plus for a couple of months in the UK. You've gone through the Imagineering story and Mandalorian and Lion King 50,000 times, and you've watched Frozen. But what are those secret little gems of shows, especially ones that remind you of Walt Disney World? Let me know, like Bunny Amy has done, whose recommendation this week is Be Our Chef. If you love watching MasterChef on BBC One and you love Walt Disney World, you will love Be Our Chef on Disney Plus. It's a family cooking series. Obviously, Be Our Chef, Be Our Guest. You can guess that a lot of the things they have to conjure up are Disney-inspired dishes, and it's filmed at Walt Disney World. Thank you, Amy, for your recommendation. Be Our Chef on Disney Plus. If you've got any top tips, anything you found, anything filmed at Walt Disney World, anything that reminds you maybe of a Disney attraction, give me a shout. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we are at PodMagical. I'm back to talking about food with this week's guest, Ruth. So, your favourite Walt Disney World restaurants, what are your recommendations?
Just this last time. So most of the times that I've eaten before, it's been in Magic Kingdom. But when we went over Christmas, we booked to have breakfast in the Garden Grill at Epcot. Even the food was just amazing.
The food is brilliant in there, yeah. But both breakfast and lunch and dinner.
It's good, yeah. We were, at one point, I was sitting kind of enjoying my breakfast and I looked up and Mickey was standing there and I'd been so enjoying the food I hadn't even noticed.
You forgot that Farmer Mickey was standing right in front of you.
Yeah.
I think what it is with Garden Grill, because I know a lot of the food that they serve there, so at breakfast you get like the Mickey waffles and bacon and sausage and scrambled egg. And then, have you been for lunch and dinner as well?
No, I've only done breakfast there.
Lunch and dinner's kind of like a lot of cut meats and vegetables. I think it's quite British food. I think that's why a lot of Brits like Garden Grill.
Yes.
And you know, it's like a buffet. There's a lot of food you don't have to keep getting up. They bring it to you as well. And you got the characters.
And I really like that because even realistically, these restaurants are quite often about meeting the characters. But I like that they don't just rest on that they give you nice food as well.
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to planning, are you a planner?
Yeah.
Obsessive planner? How do you plan your holidays?
No, I'm not too bad. And actually, I think the best way to enjoy it is not to be kind of really obsessive about it, because things don't always work out. And I think what you always forget is just quite how brutal the heat is. And you do need to take things at a slower pace than you might otherwise. I would tend to do fast passes first, because we've always often stayed off site. You've only got the 30 days, so you're a lot more limited in when you can get them and what's available. So we do fast passes first and then plan the rest around that.
And with the 30 days, you have to go on every day, don't you? You have to go like exactly 30 days before each visit, yeah?
Yes.
Outside Disney, I suppose if you're staying in a villa, do you get to explore much more of Orlando or Florida? Is there anywhere else you like to go?
Yeah, we've done quite a bit of moving about. We had friends who had a house in Fort Myers, so we spent quite a bit of time there, doing the beach and doing a trip into Miami and things like that. We as a family are quite big shoppers as well, so we'll always have a fair few days at the different malls and the different outlets. So and I think the mall at Millennia is just beautiful.
With the Cheesecake Factory.
Yes, yeah. But I also think it's like where the beautiful people live.
So your friends who live over in Florida, it's so great to have friends in Florida. Have they got a big house? What's your average like American house like?
So they did, but they sadly sold it, which I was really quite upset about. It was down by the beach and it was maybe 3 or 4 bedrooms. So yeah, they were very generous that they let us use it quite a bit over the summer. And
are they like pass holders for Disney, or are they a bit too far out of Orlando?
No, so it's probably about 3-4 hours from Disney.
It's not a day trip really then, is it?
No.
But a good place to visit if you want to do park and beach for a few days, I suppose.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a bit more chilled than living in Orlando.
This is a bit of a strange question to ask at these times, but have you got your eye on going back soon?
Well, do you know, it was funny because I was on the phone to my dad last night and he said, what do you think about going to Orlando in Christmas 2021?
Not this December, but next December.
I said, I really haven't thought very much about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Christmas 2021 is probably a good time to go.
Yes, it might have recovered by then.
I hope so. Blimey, I hope so. And of course, you'll be hopefully into the 50th celebrations at the end of next year.
Yes.
Well, always great to talk Walt Disney. It's always great to switch off for half an hour and talk about our favourite place. Lovely talking to you, Ruth, and have a magical day.
Thank you. Bye.
And don't forget, if you want to join me on the podcast one week for a chat about your Walt Disney World memories, maybe any top tips you've got, then just get in touch. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we are at PodMagical. That's where you can find us. Andy's top tip of the week this week is just a little bit of a quick one, really. When you go into the Haunted Mansion, you know, the stretch room, the first bit you go into, if you want to avoid the crowds, then you need to stand under the girl with the parasol. Okay, look for the picture of the girl with the parasol, stand under there, and you'll be the first one out onto the attraction because it all gets a bit squishy and squashy through there, doesn't it? Andy's top tip of the week this week. Got any tips? Let me know. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, PodMagical. We're going to end the podcast this week with a poem. Yeah, now you might have seen this on social media. Hello to Jax, who sent me this. Said, Andy, I thought this would be quite nice. If you want to read it on the podcast, I thought I'd send it your way. Jax, thank you very much for this. So let's end the podcast on a poem. The bus stops are empty. The families are gone. The ferry boat's docked with no passengers on. There's nobody screaming on Hollywood Tower, and Peter Pan's wait time is only an hour. Main Street's a ghost town. Figment's on vacation. Mickey and Minnie are in self-isolation. Your Disney World group chat is awash with sad faces. You'd kill for a Dole Whip and worse for a Cases. But if all this were a film, Walt Disney would say, believe that your happy ending isn't too far away. And though we all miss the thrill of the parks, the magic of Disney lives on in our hearts. And when the parks open, I swear I won't moan if you watch the fireworks through the screen on your phone. For we all need the magic, that one special place that puts wind in your sails and a smile on your face. Mickey treats, Pandora, driving under the sign, or the feeling you get when your magic band chimes. So look after each other. This will all pass us by. And when life is hard, remember, you can fly. You can fly. And until next time, please stand clear of the doors.